sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to The Briefing with me, Gloria De Piero. As our cost of living crisis gets even worse, how might the government help? Our politics panel will discuss the issues of the day. And Labour MP Ben Bradshaw tells me about being one of the first openly gay parliamentary candidates and how he feels for the trans community today. But first, it is the news with Rosie.
Good afternoon, it's 12 o'clock. I'm Rosie Wright, here to get you up to date on GB News. Now, Ukraine's president is urging European countries to protect their own security by helping Ukraine defend itself. At a meeting of Nordic and Baltic leaders in London, Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed Western sanctions but warned they aren't enough to end Russia's aggression and asked them to send more weapons.
Everything will go against Europe if Ukraine won't stand. So I would like to ask you to help yourself by helping us. You know the kind of weapon we need, everyone knows. You know what kind of defense measures we need. You know what that our need is, the fighter jets. And without your support, it would be very difficult. I'm very grateful, but I want to say that we need more.
Boris Johnson said the situation in Ukraine was desperate and promised to do more.
I hear your points very loud and clear about the economic sanctions that we need to tighten, where we need to go harder on the banks, on SWIFT. And I think that you're completely right in what you say. This is a desperate moment. And I think we must try to do more, particularly to support you in protecting the Ukrainian people from bombardment by artillery and by aviation.
The mayor of Ukraine's capital says there will be a 35-hour curfew in Kyiv from this evening, lasting until Thursday morning. Vitaly Klitschko's announcement follows large explosions overnight, leaving 2 people dead and residential buildings heavily damaged. Peace negotiations between Moscow and Kyiv do resume today after being paused yesterday. Russian prosecutors are trying to move the Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny to a maximum security prison. They've also asked a court to hand Navalny an additional 13 years of jail time for fraud and contempt of court charges. He's already serving a 2.5-year sentence at a prison camp in Moscow for parole violations. New laws to tackle dirty money in the UK have been fast-tracked through Parliament in a bid to target Russian oligarchs. The Economic Crime Act is going to allow the UK to sanction those who've had their assets frozen by the European Union, the US and Canada. The government is now expected to announce further sanctions in response to Russia's invasion. The UN has urged authorities to ensure the journalist who interrupted a live news broadcast on Russian state television on a channel is not punished. Channel 1 editor Marina Osyanikova ran onto the set of the network's live nightly news show last night with a sign reading, "Don't believe propaganda, they're lying to you." The Kremlin described her actions as hooliganism. In some other news now, Frankie Smith, the mother of the murdered toddler Star Hobson, has had her prison sentence increased to 12 years at the Court of Appeal. The 20-year-old was originally jailed for 8 years in December for her role in the murder of her 16-month-old daughter, who was killed by her former partner, Savannah Brockhill. British Iranian national Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe has had her British passport returned to her. That's according to the Labour MP Tulip Siddiq, who tweeted that Nazanin is still at her family home in Tehran and that there's a British negotiation team with her. Ms Zaghari-Ratcliffe has been detained in Iran since her arrest in 2016 on charges of plotting to overthrow the government, allegations she has always denied. Detectives who are investigating the murder of Northern Ireland journalist Lyra McKee have arrested 5 men. They're aged between 20 and 54. They were arrested in Londonderry this morning under the Terrorism Act. Ms McKee was killed in the city in April 2019 as she observed rioting in the Cregan area. An extremist group styling itself the New IRA has previously claimed it was responsible. The number of unemployed people in the UK has dropped below pre-pandemic levels for the first time. The Office for National Statistics figures show 29.7 million UK workers are now on payroll as of February. That's a record high. Earnings, though, continue to fall behind inflation. Average weekly wages are down 1.6% compared with the year earlier. You're up to date here on GB News. I'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's head to the briefing with Gloria.
Coming up this hour on The Briefing, wages are rising, but not as fast as prices. Our economics editor joins me to discuss our cost of living crisis and what Chancellor Rishi Sunak might do to help us. We'll discuss the issues of the day, including the government's response to the refugee crisis and the cost of living, with my political panel MPs Scott Benton and Barry Sherman. Labour MP Ben Bradshaw was one of the first openly gay men to stand for Parliament. He'll be talking to me about that. And Isabel Oakeshott reports from the Polish border, talking to people from across Europe who have rushed to the country to help Ukrainian refugees. So wages in the UK aren't keeping up with price rises. Who better to talk us through this than our economics editor, Liam Halligan, who is with me now. So the top line, wages aren't keeping up with prices. New figures out today, Liam.
New figures out today from the Office for National Statistics. They show, Gloria, average wages up 3.8%. That's January 2021 compared to January 2022. That sounds quite good, 3.8%. But not when you remember that inflation over that same period, January to January, was 5.5%. And of course, if inflation, prices, the cost of living's going up faster than the amount of money you're getting when you go to work, your living standard is falling. And that's what's happening now on average across the UK.
The government would say, but we're getting more people into work. That's back at pre-pandemic levels, and that's the best way to help people with the cost of living crisis. It is the best way to help people. We've got 275,000 more people on a payroll, so in work, getting paid, than we had in February compared to January. And so unemployment is at 3.9%. I mean, when we were kids, it was sort of 10%. Do you remember that? And that's at that's lower than it was before the pandemic. But lots of people have actually dropped out of the workforce. So unemployment is as a share of a smaller number of people. Right. So it's not quite comparing apples with apples, if you like. Having said that, average wages are falling in real terms. The biggest drop in what we call real wages after inflation since 2014. I'm concerned that's going to spark industrial action. I understand why HGV drivers, why refuse collectors, right? They're now striking in some parts of the country, striking bin men, if you like, more now than at any time in the last 40 years. So they're obviously, better than anyone, the strength of the trade unions in the public sector, doctors, nurses, teachers, firefighters. Look, these guys are not going to take a real wage cut lying down, particularly when they see the Chancellor taking in more tax, more VAT, particularly when they see oil companies making lots of money because of these high
prices that they're charging at the pumps for our petrol and diesel. Yes. So I think there's going to be, a bit of a dogfight in terms of the economy over the coming months.
And the economic statement, sort of mini budget by Rishi Sunak, is next Wednesday. You and I will be guiding our viewers through that.
Getting the old band back together.
Oh, it was a good band.
Yeah.
Speculation that he might help with fuel duty. Are you picking that up, Liam?
I am. So, you know, Gloria, you're a ex-parliamentarian. A spring statement, it's usually a small thing, just political and nerdy obsessives like you and me. He updates some growth numbers and it's over in an hour. It doesn't make a big splash in the papers and doesn't bother the broadcasters too much. Not this year. The spring statement on Wednesday, the 23rd of March, is going to be a major political event, certainly the biggest test of Rishi Sunak politically since he became Chancellor. And I think he's going to have to do more. I do think he's going to have to not just freeze fuel duty, but actually start giving drivers some money back. I think he may even be forced to delay that increase in national insurance for employers and employees. That will be a climb down for the Chancellor. He's already legislated for that. But at a time when living standards are falling, a lot of Labour backbenchers, the Labour frontbench too, plus Tory backbenchers are saying this is not the time to raise national insurance. It's a tax on jobs. And after all, the Chancellor, he can always blame Russia. He can always blame the war in Ukraine. Something new has happened. I've got to respond. I can't be dogmatic. I'm going to be the better person and not go through with this increase in national insurance.
But just before people get too excited, Rishi Sunak and the Prime Minister have been asked repeatedly.
They have.
Will you carry on with putting taxes up through that national insurance rise for all of us come next month? And they insist, they are adamant that they have to do that.
Yeah, and now we've had oil touching $130 a barrel. Now we've had a fall in real wages that people like you and me are talking about, the biggest fall in real wages for the best part of a decade. And when the inflation number comes out on the 23rd of March, it's not going to be 4 or 5%. It's going to be more like 6, 7 or 8%. And as you and I often discuss, and I cover during my On the Money show every lunchtime at 1, for many, many people, the sort of real world inflation, the inflation they're experiencing when they're filling up their cars and vans at the petrol station, when they're trying to pay their household bills, when they're buying food for their families, food prices, of course, going up as a result of this Russia-Ukraine conflict. To them, the idea that inflation's 5, 6 or 7%, that's a sick joke. The actual increase in the cost of living for them over the last year has been double digits, even higher, because, of course, vulnerable families spend more of their money on those necessities. So their inflation that they experience is higher than the headline numbers.
And Labour trying to get over that argument, we can argue about how successful they've been at it, by saying, actually, the profits that the energy giants are making is eye-watering, record-breaking. We should be tackling them in order to help people with their bills. It's not quite taken off, but it's quite a powerful argument, isn't it?
I think they are making headway. I think Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, is tracking sort of mainstream opinion towards that view, that there should be a windfall tax on the oil companies, because when the oil price goes up, they charge a lot more. But when the oil price goes down again, it's not like they start charging less, is there? I had a fuel campaigner on my show yesterday, a guy, I won't name him, but I would bet a considerable amount of money. He is basically a Tory supporter, a Tory voter, somebody who campaigns for fair fuel across Britain. And he said he totally backs Labour's windfall tax idea. And I've even heard Tory backbenchers tell me that they back Labour's windfall tax. So let's see.
Yeah, and I'll be able to ask one of our political panel, Scott Benson, Conservative MP, whether he backs it too. Liam Halligan, as ever, a pleasure. Thank you. Next, I will be joined by my fantastic political panel, Conservative MP Scott Benson and Labour MP Barry Sherman. We'll be talking about all the big issues of the day. Back in a moment after your weather.
Hello there. A fine day today across much of the UK. Bright, sunny skies, pretty mild as well by this afternoon after a chilly old start. There is some rain, however, across the northwest. That's from this weather front that's just eking slowly towards the UK. There's another warm front in the south, and that is going to bring some warmer air later in the week, but also some rain tomorrow across parts of eastern England. For today, though, as I said, for the vast majority, dry, fine, hazy sunshine out there. The cloud is increasing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. We do have some rain trickling into the west of Northern Ireland, the Highlands, the Western Isles and the Northern Isles of Scotland. The breeze picking up here as well. Temperatures, even where it stays dry across Scotland, Northern Ireland, 9-10 degrees. But for England and Wales, the teens quite widely and maybe up as high as 16, possibly even 17 degrees across parts of the east. Much of England and Wales staying dry and fine through this evening, but the rain will spread through Belfast, through the central belt of Scotland as well, so turning quite damp here overnight. Some mist and fog is likely across the south. Temperatures holding up at 6, 7, 8 degrees Celsius. It will turn colder as the skies start to clear in the northwest later on. And a brighter day here to come tomorrow, although we could start with a touch of frost and certainly some fog for Northern Ireland. A different day for England and Wales, much more cloud, line of rain spreading southwards and some heavy rain likely over the Midlands, parts of southern England at times. Some uncertainty about exactly how far east and west that rain is, but as I said, it could be pretty heavy. Quite mild the air though, so temperatures even where it's cloudy and rainy still up to 13, 14 degrees. Western parts seeing some afternoon sunshine developing, just a few showers in the far northwest. The showery rain in the east will linger well into Wednesday evening before it finally heads out into the North Sea. And once that's gone, bar a few showers on Thursday across Scotland and Northern Ireland, most places set fair with plenty of sunshine as we head into the weekend. Goodbye.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
We've all watched the war in Ukraine in horror, and so many of us want to help. The government launched the Home for Ukraine scheme yesterday. The website crashed as so many people have expressed their desire to take Ukrainian refugees into their homes. 90,000 have signed up already. I am joined today by my fantastic panel. The Conservative MP for Blackpool South, Scott Benton, who is just about to run in the studio, and Labour MP for Huddersfield, Barry Sherman. Barry, while you've got the floor to yourself while Scott gets his mic on. Just to look at the Homes for Refugees scheme, the Labour Party were very critical of the government initially, but come on, they've got a grip on it now.
Yeah, and I think it's good that, by and large, we're keeping this cross-party, all-party support. You know, this is too serious to have division. On the margin, we'll quibble, over things quite rightly with the opposition. But by and large, we kept that all-party, I think, commitments. And, we, on both sides, as Priti Patel was a pushed the envelope a little bit when she said opposition MPs couldn't be trusted with security information. Yeah, but, you know, on both sides, we're still holding the line of support. And there's so many different ways. I've got a guy in the UK now who got in his camper van and went with stuff. And he phoned me last night. He's there. He's now ferrying people to the border. He desperately needs medical equipment sent out so we can supply that. You know, people are doing so many wonderful things in their own way. This frustration that we can't do enough.
Scott, thank you for dashing over from your debate.
Good afternoon,
it's
Gloria.
good to see you.
Morning.
We're certainly a big-hearted country. That's what the evidence shows. However, some people are saying that the scheme the government has set up is a bit DIY, that you have to name the refugee you wish to sponsor. It sounds a bit logistically difficult.
Well, I think the crisis has taken everybody by surprise. The Home Office have acted very quickly over the last 3 weeks. They've rolled out a number of different schemes. We've been quick off the mark in terms of welcoming Ukrainians here. Yesterday in the Chamber, Michael Gove announced the scheme for Ukrainian families as well, which is brilliant. In terms of what you just said, Gloria, for this week, you're completely correct. You have to name a named Ukrainian, so a family or a person you know in that country. But Michael Gove was clear yesterday. We expect rapidly the system to move beyond that. So, for example, if you know somebody through a local church, or if the church has identified people they may be able to move across, that wouldn't necessarily be a named individual. So it could be opened up wider to women and children throughout Ukraine, which I think is exactly the correct approach.
The churches have been, I think, very much in the front, you know, getting in touch with MPs, working together. Again, people trying to do something in this terrible situation where we all fear it's going to get worse and worse.
Now, let's look at what the Prime Minister's up to this week. He is going off to Saudi Arabia, urging them to turn on the oil taps as we turn away from Russia. One of your colleagues, Julian Lewis, Conservative MP, says, don't create, I'm quoting, a dependency on another unreliable and sometimes hostile regime. Is there a danger there, Scott?
Well, we have a long-established security relationship with Saudi Arabia, a lot of shared economic interests as well. That relationship will continue going forward. I think the PM's visit is very timely in terms of making sure our dependence on, for example, Russian oil and that from foreign states abates. But I think Julian makes a very clear point here, and that is in terms of energy security directly within our own country. And of course, over the last 20 years, I think governments, both red and blue, have failed on the point of making sure we have a long-term energy supply and foster our own sources of domestic energy. So Julian's correct in that aspect. And it's interesting to see there's actually an urgent question today on fracking in the House of Commons as well. So whether it be fracking or other sources of domestic supply, North Sea oil, for example, I do think we have to do far more on a cross-party basis to think strategically about how we can end our dependence on oil and gas abroad, whether indeed that be Russian or from the Middle East.
There's got to be some really hard decisions, because in the budget, what you know is that, for example, 15 to 20% of our energy use could come from energy from waste, and that means, you know, instead of throwing your waste into holes in the ground or whatever, you use it to burn it for energy. And it, in modern equipment, as soon as you mention energy from waste to an MP, they say we can't have it here. It's dreadful. So we've got to look at all the ways we get energy, and of course the technology and the science is called nuclear fusion. After all those years of experimenting, pushing nuclear fusion, billions of pounds, the breakthrough is coming. So, and hydrogen's coming. We've got to be absolutely on the front of this.
And you're both being very decent and being very consensual. But Scott mentioned fracking, and I suspect there's going to be no cross-party consensus when it comes to fracking.
No, I don't know. I've always believed in evidence-based policy. Let's look at the science. It's all very well for people in this country to say we won't frack, but does that mean that we exploit the Amazonian rainforest, that we import wood as we do in the Drax in Yorkshire. You know, this is a very complicated world in terms of energy, and we've got to get rid of our, you know, historic prejudices and look at the science and look at the overall impact on climate change.
Very pragmatic from you, Barry. I don't think you're in a majority in the Labour Party. Tell me I'm wrong.
I think you're wrong. I think
good.
we've all.
I'm happy to be told I'm wrong.
I'm a pragmatist, but I'm also a realist. And this is why I'm so down about what the Russians are doing in Ukraine, because I can never remember, and I'm a bit of a historian, you know, when I was an academic, I can't remember any despot or dictator that was stopped in his tracks by sanctions.
Indeed.
You know, in the end of the day, a dictator and a despot, you have to really use force.
Yes.
And that's a real... you know,
Well, he's repeatedly called for the West to implement a no-fly zone, and the West has repeatedly said no.
I know it's highly sensitive, and of course, you know, the thing that we don't discuss enough in the House of Commons is we are in this new world where the leader of the free world, the United States, has more or less said, we don't want to do that anymore. And there's this tremendous vacuum in world power.
Scott, I'm going to move on to cost of living. Next Wednesday, your Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, will be standing up. I'm sure Conservative MPs may be as anxious as the rest of us about whether he's going to ease some of the pain. New figures out today. Wages are just not keeping up with prices. It's reported that he might cut fuel duty. It was in the Sun newspaper this morning that Tory MPs think he might do that. Can you give us any secrets, Scott?
I can't at this stage, Gloria. I'm just as much in the dark as you are. But I think, to be fair to the government, we're doing a range of things, and we have done over the last few years to help families with cost of living. So we've reduced the universal credit taper rate, which effectively means a tax cut of over £1,000 for 2 million families in this country. We've got the national living wage going up as well. We've frozen fuel duty, which means since 2010, the average motorist has now saved £1,400. So we've got a fairly good track record on helping families with the cost of living. But of course, whether it be in Blackpool South or Huddersfield, families are now under pressure to an extent we haven't seen before with rising bills. And I've been one of the Conservative MPs who's been urging the Chancellor and the government to go further and faster in terms of supporting families. So we've seen this £350 package to help with council tax and fuel bills, but I think we need to do more because the crisis in Ukraine, unfortunately, will have long-lasting impacts on people's household budgets in this country, and we do need action.
Some people, Labour, and Barry can put this point himself, would say actually the profits that the energy giants are making are
very small,
eye-watering.
Yeah, they're eye-watering.
I'm not sure that's the case. If you look at an average energy bill, you're looking at 2 to 3% are actually classed as profit. So it's a very small profit margin. So let's not get into this false narrative of energy companies.
I'm sorry to break this wonderful party consensus, but
it had to happen.
I'm sorry, Gloria, this isn't true. The fact of the matter is that we have. I've been in Parliament a hell of a long time. Probably this is the most incompetent Chancellor I've ever seen. I mean, this is
the most trusted politician in Britain.
Can I finish my point? You know, here's someone that introduces a scheme that's so open to fraud that it loses billions of pounds in fraud that could have actually flowed to the people who are fighting the cost of living. On the other hand, we have got the incompetence that is now so clear that Michael Gove has had to be drafted in to give him some serious backbone. So, you know, I am very worried that we have a very inexperienced Chancellor that needs help. I'd actually bring back some old Chancellors like Gordon Brown to give him some advice.
Well,
we don't need the economy being crashed again.
We never crash.
Labour's still not as trusted as the Tories on the economy.
Yes.
I mean, you know, that's a fundamental problem, isn't it? The gap may be narrowing, but the Tories still have that lead.
Well, I'm sorry, but we ought to put it right. As I've been in Parliament quite a while, I do know that I served under Tony Blair and I served under Gordon Brown. I think that was an era of great competence. I'm sorry.
That is a big debate. I want to be fair to you, Scott, because I know you've just led a debate in Parliament about levelling up. Remember that one, and you've focusing on your constituency and how airports might help. Just tell us a little bit about that, because we want to give you the chance to talk about.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Gloria. The government's got a great track record at the moment in terms of supporting regional airports. So we've reduced air passenger duty, which in effect helps airports such as Teesside, Blackpool and all those others across the country in terms of connectivity with London. Because, of course, as we transition and towards net zero, it's important that aviation has a role to play in that. So the debate this morning was about green technology in aviation, using electric planes, using hydrogen fuel planes, and how we can make sure that it's still affordable for families to fly, whilst, of course, abiding by our net zero commitment. So that was the role, that was the debate this morning, but there's a huge role that reopening Blackpool Airport for commercial passenger flights can play. So that's one of the things I'm very keen to explore as far as levelling up goes.
Sort of related to travel.
Yeah, but we have COP26. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I like my regional airports to some degree, but overall, if COP26 means anything, we've got to do something about the environment. We can't expand until we get, and it's quite a long way off, hydrogen power of aircraft coming much quicker in vehicles. But in terms of air travel, that's going to take quite a long time. And I don't want to see, very quick fix like fuel duty, when we're poisoning the population of this country with the pollution in our air. So I'm sorry, we cannot throw out all our climate change good stuff that we're doing in a frenzy. We've got to be measured about it and do a balanced approach.
Can we end on some good news? Grant Shapps is about to make a statement a little later to the House of Commons about this afternoon to say that when we come back into the UK, no passenger locator forms, no tests. That's a good day for travel. We'd all celebrate that, wouldn't we?
Yeah. There's better news. We think Nazanin's going to be released.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's what I'm hoping and pray. Good news about Nazanin being released by the Iranians.
You've both been brilliant. Come back again, and thank you for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you, Gloria.
Now, my Real Me interview today is with Labour MP Ben Bradshaw. He talks about standing for Parliament as one of the first openly gay candidates and how he feels for the trans community today. Plus, Isabel Oakeshott reports from near the Polish border. That is after the news with Rosie.
It's 12:30. Good afternoon. I'm Rosie Wright, here to keep you up to date on GB News. The UK government says a further 350 Russian individuals and entities have been hit by sanctions following the invasion of Ukraine. It's after President Volodymyr Zelensky warned Western leaders sanctions aren't enough to end the war. Speaking via video link at a meeting of Northern European leaders, he urged them to protect their own security by helping Ukraine defend itself by supplying more weapons. The mayor of Ukraine's capital says there will be a 35-hour curfew in Kyiv from this evening, lasting until Thursday morning. Vitaly Klitschko's announcement follows large explosions overnight, leaving 2 people dead and residential buildings heavily damaged. Peace negotiations between Moscow and Kyiv resumed today after being paused yesterday. The Prime Ministers of Poland, Czech Republic and Slovenia are meeting with President Zelensky in Ukraine's capital today. The leaders will present an aid package. The Czech Prime Minister said the visit will show the unequivocal support of the entire European Union for the sovereignty and the independence of Ukraine. British-Iranian aid worker Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe has had her British passport, returned to her. That's according to the Labour MP, Tulip Siddiq, who's tweeted that she's still at home in her family home in Tehran and that there's a British negotiation team with her. HSBC have announced they're closing 69 of their branches in the UK. The group say it's due to the shift to online banking, which they say has been accelerated by the pandemic. The move will affect around 400 staff members overall. You're up to date on GB News. We're on your TV, online and DAB Plus radio. Shortly, we'll be back to the briefing with Gloria.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
Right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
For my latest Real Me interview, I spoke with Labour MP for Exeter, Ben Bradshaw, one of the first two openly gay men to run for Parliament. Labour tying itself in knots over the definition of woman, he tells me he feels for the trans community. After 25 years of being an MP, you are down. Why?
Well, I guess there's never a perfect time to stand down Gloria, but if I stood again at the next election and won, I could in theory be pushing kind of 70 by the end of the next Parliament, and I've never imagined myself as somebody who would go on quite that long. I've always had a life outside politics. There's other stuff I want to do. I want to have time with my family and friends that I've kind of sacrificed in public life for the last quarter of a century. So, and with the Labour Party in a better place now, it feels easy to step back. It would have been difficult, I think, if we'd still had Corbyn, and I would have worried who might succeed me in Exeter, but I'm not so worried about that now. So it just feels like the right time for me.
You were elected in 1997 as a gay man. Now, that is totally so what now, but it wasn't in 1997. You were a trailblazer.
It was extraordinary. And when I talk to young people now about what happened in that campaign and what was thrown at me by my Tory opponent, they just cannot believe that it's possible. And it was only 25 years ago. But in a funny kind of way, it helped me because I think there was a kind of consensus, political consensus, particularly in some of the tabloid press and in the Tory party, that the public weren't ready for gay equality. Actually, I think the public were ahead of where the politicians were. We'd had gay characters in the soaps for a while. Most people knew somebody who was gay in their family or circle of friends. So the attacks on me actually can play to my advantage, and a lot of sort of decent, fair-minded Tories ended up voting for me because they were so repelled by the campaign against me. But it was a real watershed in British politics. And we then went into the Blair government with all those reforms sweeping away the discriminatory legislation that had applied to gay people, which again a lot of young people now kind of can't think was possible so recently. So yeah, it was a big moment. And one of the things I'm proudest about what we did in government was that movement forward. And it was, we were a trailblazer, not just here, but in the world as well in terms of our laws.
What sort of attacks did your opponent subject you to?
Oh, I mean, I just can't remember the exact quote, but he said on the day after I was selected that, Ben Bradshaw is a disease-ridden, sterile homosexual who works for the BBC, speaks German, rides a bicycle, he's everything about our country that is wrong. Leaflets were put out on my council estate saying if I was elected, your children will be in danger. And of all of that, yeah, no, yeah, I mean, it sounds incredible now. But it was, I had a very strong instinct that this stuff wouldn't work for him. And actually, I remember walking through one of these estates on the day or the day after one of these leaflets had gone out, and this working class woman coming out of her house saying, "This is disgusting. This is absolutely disgusting." I kind of thought then, yeah, he's not pitched this right, has he? So we had the world's media as well as a result of this in Exeter, which I think the people quite liked, and the kids in Exeter, I mean, they're probably not really interested in politics, but they all still know who I am because of this kind of history has been passed down the generations, and I think that's quite an unusual situation to have, all thanks to this campaign back in '97.
Do you see any parallels between how the lesbian and gay community were treated back then to the debate about trans rights, trans people today?
I do a bit. I mean, I see some of the tone and some of the language used about trans people, the misunderstandings, and they remind me of some of the stuff that went on in the 80s with gay and lesbian people. Some of the moves that we're seeing now, for example, by the government to kind of try to sort of discourage teachers and schools from discussing these issues or allowing children to discuss them in an open and honest and fair way. And that does worry me, because if anything, trans people are an even more set upon minority than lesbian and gay people were back then. No one would choose to be trans necessarily. There are lots and lots of difficulties and problems you face in that situation. And I just think to have such a lot of anger and prejudice and bile expressed in some of our mainstream media on a daily basis must be really, really tough. And we have a trans godson who was very, very ill as a young girl, and we nearly lost her. And she transitioned in her late teens. He is now a happy, well-balanced young man getting on with his life. And I just wish sometimes that people will come together and discuss these things with people who've got that lived experience, because I think so much of the commentary we see is not based on lived experience, is not based on having listened to the people who are in that situation. And I think if perhaps more people did, we'd have more tolerance and more mutual understanding.
Do you think we're a long way from getting a trans member of parliament?
I hope not. I mean, quite a lot of other liberal democracies have had trans members of parliament. And I hope that that's something that will happen soon. I mean, I think the statistics are probably mitigate against it, because we're talking about a really very small proportion of the population, and it's difficult enough, I think, for trans people just to get on with their lives, let alone going through the process of standing for parliament. But I think we've got trans people in local government, and hopefully in my lifetime, and maybe sooner than that, we'll have a trans member of parliament. And I think we'll see what happened when we had a lot of gay and lesbian people coming into parliament in the 1990s, that suddenly the public discourse changed and we live in a completely different world now.
So 25 years observing politics and parliament at close quarters. How has our politics changed for the better in that 25 years?
I think for the better. Well, Parliament is a less stodgy, old-fashioned, stuffy place. I mean, the hours are kind of, they're still long, but they're more normal, much easier if you're a woman, for example, or have children. Parliament's much more diverse than it was when I came in, and I think some of the things that the way we treat people has improved. On the other hand, I don't think there's any doubt that social media and the social media age has brought a flip side to some of those improvements in terms of the tone of the discourse sometimes. And we've seen, haven't we, some really horrific and fatal attacks on MPs in recent years. And I still don't think we've quite got a handle on that. I mean, the government's trying now through its digital bill to regulate this part of our media, which is pretty much completely unregulated, unlike broadcasters like you. So I hope we can feel our way through this. But there's no doubt that on the one hand, there have been massive improvements and strides forward. But on the other, I saw Tony Blair say in an interview the other day he wouldn't want his children to go into politics. And I thought, that's really sad, because actually being an elected representative is a very noble calling if you do it right and represent your constituents and work hard. And there's no more nobler calling really in a democracy. And I think if people feel put off because of the level of abuse that they're suffering, then we have a real problem. And I think we need to deal with that collectively as a nation.
Have you changed constituency surgeries and how you do them over the last 25 years?
Sure. I mean, long before the murder of Joe Cox, I mean, I had kind of stopped doing all-comer open constituency surgeries, partly because I didn't think they served my constituents very well. You don't want loads of people turning up in a room and having to wait for ages to see you. So I've been running appointment-only surgeries for a very long time. And actually, generally, when I'm contacted by a constituent with a problem, we say to them, yeah, of course, you can come and see Ben, such and such a time, Friday after next. But then, can you tell us what the problem's about? And if they say it's about X, well, we can deal with that now on the phone. So actually, you're giving people a better service by just dealing with their problems or their issues immediately via email or telephone, rather than having to have a face-to-face meeting. So it wasn't so much a security thing for me. And of course, we're all still out and about in our constituencies where we make ourselves accessible. We do make ourselves vulnerable. But I don't think there's any, you wouldn't want to lose that. And I remember when I was a Foreign Office Minister travelling to some countries in the Middle East, where ministers lived behind barbed wires with guards and dogs and motorbike outriders just to go out to the shops, and they were kind of amazed that I was still cycling to work, and I don't think we'd want to lose that. That would be a real shame for our democracy.
What's the hardest thing that you have been through in that 25 years of serving your constituency, being an MP?
I mean, I think, again, this is probably, not where GBNews is, but I mean, I'm still traumatised by the Brexit vote, I have to say, Gloria. I mean, I still think that in time we will live to regret this. I don't see any other Western democracy making such a big strategic error in our lifetimes. And I know there's nothing you can do about that now, but that is still here, and makes me feel, the old adage, all political careers end in failure, feel very true about me, because I campaigned very hard against it. I think kind of the other thing that was really, really tough for me, and I think for most Labour MPs and many Labour voters and members, were the kind of factional battles through the Corbyn years. Things were really very difficult, not just at national level, but also at local party level. And a lot of this was unseen. A lot of people joined the party who'd never really been Labour. They made meetings very unpleasant. A lot of kind of decent, long-standing, moderate Labour members were driven away. And for many of them, that had been their life. And, it's difficult enough to attract people to volunteer for a political party and an organisation, which we need to do if we're going to have a healthy democracy. But when people turn up at a meeting and they're abused or shouted at or not allowed to speak, then why on earth would any normal person do that? And that was a really tough 5 years, I have to say. And there were the times, when I think quite a lot of us thought, why do we do this? But, we stayed and we stuck with it and we fought, and in the end, we've got into a better place. So it was worth it. But at the time, wow, as you will remember yourself,
yes,
it was hard.
It was tough. It was tough. Now, one thing I don't really remember seeing you at is the number of bars that are in the House of Commons, which, I like to pop into from time to time. Was that a conscious decision for you to avoid the various bars?
No, I think you'd find the staff at the members' bar rather surprised by that assertion. I think probably, maybe having kind of been quite absent or relatively absent in my early years, when I think the bars were a bit busier than they are now. Now I'm kind of one of the more regular attenders.
Are you?
Oh yeah. No, I mean I love going down there and.
At the Strangers, is that your favourite?
Yeah,
well, no, that was never my favourite.
Okay. Well, I've always liked going down there. supporting the local ales and the West Country cider that they serve from time to time, and also having access to the wonderful terrace outside in the summer. I mean, I'm not one of these people who would go and have a drink in the bar every day after work, but I like taking my staff for a drink after a hard working week. And it's been difficult during COVID because a lot of the bars and restaurants in the house have been closed, and more so than they have actually in the real world. And I think with Parliament's long hours and with an MP's long working week, I wouldn't go out of my way to hang around in a bar when I don't have to be in Parliament. No, so I tend to go to the bar, while votes are happening or before we go home. But, my time with my husband and with family and friends and in the constituency has always been too important for me. So, maybe I haven't been there as much as some people.
There's an old saying in politics, if you want to find a friend in politics, get a dog. Is that accurate? Can you have real friendships when there's so much rivalry and ambition?
I think it depends on the person. I mean, for me, my friends have always been outside politics. They've tended to be old friends from university or from my previous journalistic career. There are people in politics and in Parliament who I really like and would like to develop friendships with maybe when I retire. But I think you're right in a way. For example, there were no politicians at my wedding. Actually, there was a New Zealander, a New Zealand Labour politician, but there were no British politicians. So that's quite different from quite a lot of politicians' weddings.
I think I had two, but that's not bad. But some of them are like political events.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think people are different in that way. But I've made really good friends in my constituency among local activists, and particularly the next generation of activists. And when they take forward, this Exodus story, I will be watching them and supporting them and keeping in touch with them and hoping they go far. And I hope that those will become kind of nice, long-lasting, lifetime friendships as well.
And finally, do you have any regrets? Do you wish there is anything that you would have done differently during those 25 years?
No, I'm often asked this question, and
there's me thinking I'm original.
But it's the obvious question that every politician is always asked, and I honestly don't think there's any single thing or moment when I really regret having done that rather than that. I feel extremely blessed. I've had an amazing run. I've been lucky enough to have had the privilege of not only serving as a constituency MP for as long as I have, given it was a former Tory seat, but also a government minister for 10 years. Not every politician gets that. You have to have the luck of the draw, the luck of the timing. So, as long as I keep my good health and can enjoy a few years of retirement, no regrets whatsoever.
Ben Bradshaw, very happy interview. It's nice to hear. Thank you. Now, nearly 3 million people have fled Ukraine. There are also amazing stories about those who've headed towards the conflict to do what they can do to help. GBNews' Isabel Oakeshott has been on a special trip to the Polish border put on by the UK's all-party parliamentary group on Poland and has this report.
It's nearly 3 weeks since Russian forces began their brutal assault on Ukraine, and still the refugees come. Millions have fled in terror, and border towns like here in Shamesh are a new humanitarian front line. Helping them to safety is an incredible grassroots movement of global volunteers, people like Daniel from Germany, who was so moved by what he saw, he hired a coach to take refugees to his home country for as long as they like.
We saw the news, a couple of weeks ago, what is happening here in Ukraine to the people, and we think we want to help because we think it's not right what's happening to the people, and we have space in Germany. We heard that Poland is nearly full. We have space. A lot of people want to help. All the stories, if you talk to them, they should talk, not me, because if you talk to them, their stories are really heartbreaking, and we think it's our job to help the people for a better future.
Those fleeing the terror are put up in vast reception centres like this one in a primary school. Patricia, who's Polish but lives in the UK, headed back to her hometown to help out.
I decided to come back because I was watching the news for around 5 days every day, crying, being super emotional. and that was the least I could do. So I've decided to come back and help the refugees. This is my primary school, and it's absolutely heartbreaking to be back here. But I think I'm doing good for the school and for the people that are here, and that's the least I can do.
Patricia is far from the only person who's come from Britain to help. James from Peterborough is married to a Russian woman. He felt he had to do something.
So we spoke about it in the evening one day, and she said, I said, I want to go and help, and she said, that sounds beautiful, and even give me some money to help. And yeah, so we bought the children lots of chocolates and been handing out 500 chocolate bars a day to children, and it's been really nice.
And how does your wife feel about President Putin's actions and the war effort on his side?
Well, I think she feels the same as most people in Russia feel, that they're against the war. There's lots of protesting going on. Nobody really understands what President Putin and his close people are doing.
Just down the road is the train station where many refugees first arrive. The Deputy Mayor of Shemesh is grateful for the volunteers' support, including from the British. I asked him if the UK is doing enough at a political level.
I do not know what the UK is doing. I'm here 16 hours per day. We are tired. There is 1.5 million refugees that have already arrived. Some estimates predict that it may be reaching up to 8 million people. Poland will not be able to cope with that number. So yes, we do need support, we do need help, and the UK should be one of those countries helping us.
Those Ukrainians who make it this far are the lucky ones. The UN says hundreds of civilians have been killed already, though exactly how many is unknown. The real figure may be far higher. Just inside the Polish border, meeting those who are literally staggering across, are paramedic volunteers from around the world. Many of them are haunted by what they've seen and the fear on the faces of these people who have left everything except a small suitcase of belongings and often their pets behind.
It is visible in their faces, especially in their eyes. When there's war, you can see that by little children who stop being so happy-go-lucky, but they're really scared and calm. We had a family of 9 come here a couple days ago, and they would all take some tea, try to get a warm, treat something. But there was one boy who he couldn't calm himself down. And we overheard a conversation between him and his mother. And he kept asking her, why are we sitting here? Why are we sitting here? Because someone wants to kill us. We have to go. And the mother tried to explain to him, we are across the border. You are safe now. You can calm down. You can get warm, and we're gonna go further. No, we can't stay here. We have to go. He was 4.
Isabel Oakeshott, GB News, in Shemesh on the Polish border.
You have been watching The Briefing. Join me tomorrow at 10 to 12 for Prime Minister's Question Time. Next up, it's On the Money with Liam Halligan. Your weather is next.
Hello there. A fine day today across much of the UK. Bright, sunny skies, pretty mild as well by this afternoon after a chilly old start. There is some rain, however, across the northwest. That's from this weather front that's just eking slowly towards the UK. There's another warm front in the south, and that is going to bring some warmer air later in the week, but also some rain tomorrow across parts of eastern England. For today, though, as I said, for the vast majority, dry, fine, hazy sunshine out there. The cloud is increasing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. We do have some rain trickling into the west of Northern Ireland, the Highlands, the Western Isles and the Northern Isles of Scotland. The breeze picking up here as well. Temperatures, even where it stays dry across Scotland, Northern Ireland, 9-10 degrees. But for England and Wales, the teens quite widely and maybe up as high as 16, possibly even 17 degrees.